Hello, I'm William Stewart. Welcome back to our verse by verse study on the book of Hebrews. I'm glad you're here. What a great book this is, telling us so much about the ministry of Christ and the plan of God to bring us salvation by faith alone, by his grace, in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we're in chapter 9, and we're in the middle of a description, a comparison between salvation given by Christ compared to what was provided under the law. And of course, the many differences. What Christ gives, of course, is better. He has power to salvation. Actually, Christ delivers salvation by his death and resurrection, and versus the law, which really only provided a temporary reprieve from the wrath of God, while teaching people about Messiah so they could have faith in God till Christ arrived and fulfilled that promise. So many differences. The Christ has a better covenant, better promises, better surety, a better priesthood, only having to sacrifice once. This sacrifice is sufficient for all sins for all time. And we continue in the comparison today, verses 15 through 17, chapter 9. For this cause, otherwise Christ giving himself for us to salvation, he is the mediator of a New Testament. So as Moses was the mediator of the Old Covenant, the Mosaic Covenant, Christ is the mediator of the New Covenant. Remember, covenant and testament are the same word in the original Greek, diatheke. That by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. Okay, so he's talking about those Old Testament saints who were called. So all people who are to be saved from Old Testament times or New Testament times are called, or chosen. And God knows or knew who his people were and forbear their sins as they sacrificed and believed in faith that Messiah would come. So those transgressions that were under the Mosaic law, God waited and they would receive their eternal inheritance. Remember, inheritance, though this is a general Greek word, in the New Testament means, or in the apostolic epistles, means salvation. So all this, their ultimate salvation of those under the Mosaic covenant are by the new covenant. Christ's death and resurrection. They're saved the same way we are. They had to look ahead to that, and we look backwards. Verse 16, for a testament is, there must also be the necessity of the death of the testator. Now, the word for covenant and testament, as I said, is diatheke in the original. It meant a general contract, but also meant last will and testament. So my context here is talking now about the specifically a last will and testament, that of being Christ. So the new covenant did not take effect till Christ's death on the cross to bring us salvation. Why is that? Because man's sin, the righteousness of God, demanded a punishment for man's sin. That can only happen with a satisfactory sacrifice, as typed or imaged in the Old Testament sacrifice at the temple, the tabernacle. It's Christ, perfect God, and perfect man, all God, the hypostatic union. He sacrificed and died for us, so that testament, covenant, the new covenant, could come in place where we could have salvation. What a great promise. Verse 17, for a testament of force after men are dead, for a testament is of force after men are dead, otherwise it is no strength at all while the testator liveth. So otherwise, if you're expecting a inheritance from your rich great uncle or aunt, That's not going to happen until they die. Now, it may not happen at all if they don't like you or they didn't give their money to you, but it's only possible if they die. And thus, with that will, the provisions of that will come in force. Same way with the new covenant and Christ. When he died, the provisions of that will became in force. Okay, great promise, better promise through Christ than the law or any legalistic system or any other religion. It's Christianity that deals with the sin problem of men, not by fake sacrifices or works which are ineffectual, but only by the sacrifice of the living, perfect God on our behalf. Okay, thank you for joining me. We'll continue with this amazing discussion next time. Please join me then.